Where I come from, an emotion is a signal. It's not a symptom. It's not a disorder. It's a signal or a messenger. It wants to tell us something, and it wants to move us. It's even in the word motion, emotion, right? It wants to drive us to do something. So the best example I can have that most people would follow is the not emotion, but sensation of hunger, let's say. It's pretty adaptive that it's unpleasant to be hungry. Like it would be a stupid mechanism. It was pleasant when our bodies needed nutrition. So our bodies need nutrition to survive, but it can't walk out and get it on its own. See? So there's a physiological need. It needs to motivate us conscious beings to do it. So it needs to send an unpleasant signal that we then have to decode. Okay, I'm hungry. My body is signaling me to go take something to eat. And when you do that, it shuts off. That's the way that regulates. Then understand that we don't just survive on food and oxygen and shelter. We have a lot of psychological needs. We need to belong, to move forward, to have hope, identity. We need to be challenged, actually. We don't just want to survive. We want to continue to, right? To get along. We need to be part of a tribe, believe in something, have autonomy. That's a huge need. Try to look at a little toddler and help them with something that they're trying to figure out at their age. They'll be annoyed, right? If you try to help them tie their shoe or eat the avocado or whatever, it's need for autonomy. So this is just a long way of saying we have those needs too. And the way our bodies communicate to it what we need of that long list of psychological needs is through emotion. So an emotion is a signal that we then have to decode. Now, hunger or being tired is pretty obvious for most people to decode, right? But it gets more tough with the psychological needs, which are just as basic. And that's really what a lot of therapy is about. So there'd be something missing or not being the way it should in a person's life. But if we don't decode the messenger, then obviously our job would just be to go and push it down all the time.
I think that massively relates to what you said before about safety. I find that a lot of the symptoms that I display that could be classed as a mental health disorder often come from a place of not feeling safe.
Yeah.
And that's the message. And there could be other things, deeper things it's trying to communicate. But I had this moment last year where I was sat at my laptop, and I'm sure everyone's had this moment, and I was trying to get my brain into writing. And for the life of me, I couldn't concentrate. And I forced. I drank coffee, I went for a run. And at this moment, I've been introduced to a concept called the felt sense, that we have a felt sense in our bodies. And I thought, I'm going to try it. So I just sat down, and it wasn't really a meditation. I just sat down and tried to feel how do I feel?
So you just sat and did nothing, basically, no over behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was just how do I feel in my body? And I felt this strange sensation in my chest, kind of a bit like a racing heart, like an energy feel. I felt something in my head, and I realised that what I could have labelled as ADHD, as not being able to concentrate, as feeling like I'm going to bounce off the walls, actually the felt sense was like I was unsafe. And I found that really powerful because the strategy that my body was telling me was I need to move. Something is wrong here. There's a threat. There wasn't, which was the confusing thing.
So it's a very basic mechanism, right? It would make sense for most people to frame it like this. If there was a lion behind me, if there was an objectively dangerous situation, would I be able to just sit and write and do something in that context stupid? It would be stupid to focus on work if there was a lion just here, right? So the body has a hierarchy. Right? So it's such a basic psychological mechanism. It's almost comical. Obviously, if you feel unsafe, you're not supposed to work, and that'll then come out as being unfocused or inattentive. And I'm sure your body tried to make you do a lot of other things than work because you felt unsafe. And safety in particular, our survival is the basic need, so you could be absolutely sure that takes the front seat once it's challenged. What'd you do then? So what you did, not that this is therapy and it shouldn't be, but it sounds to me like you, for a second there, stopped avoiding it or forcing or pushing your system into something that it wouldn't do. Then what?
I find that the work I've done over the last year on myself has been to connect with my body, and feelings can be really confusing.
Yeah. Yes.
And
they talk in code language, really.
And I love that. I love that you spoke how we had to decode. And I think what I've been learning to do, and I'm still very much learning, is how to decode.
Yeah.
And the thing that helps me decode is to have a space where, kind of like meditation, but I can't sit still. But that's not an excuse.
No.
I rock, I sway,
Yeah.
but I follow the sensations in my body. That is my meditation.
Yeah.
And someone that's been highly anxious at times, that might sound counterintuitive. And for some people, sitting down, closing your eyes and trying to meditate is a bad idea.
It could be traumatic.
Yeah.
It could be the worst.
So I often do it with my eyes open a little bit, but I find I just sit, I give space, and I just feel. I don't label.
No.
I follow the sensations in my body. And what I start to find is that I feel in the same places. I mentioned my chest, mentioned my face, I get it in my cheeks. And that's how I decode now, because there's a felt sense to each emotion. And it's like the cheat code that no one told me about.
Exactly. And that's because I think for most people it's too basic. Like, it can't be just that. But it's more about doing less, really. That's the point here. And then trusting that there is, and you can call it what you want, spirit, messenger, or call it an inner compass, just the idea that we have someone who constantly, someone or something who constantly keeps track of those needs and values and goals in our life. And if there is a discrepancy, that's what causes the emotion. So, and I like the thought of having something inside me, as you explained so well there, that keeps track of this and lets me know once I'm off. So the fact that the way we get in touch with that is to do less. And that's what people, I think, at least in this day and age, is the recipe for all the distraction going on with social media or Netflix, or constantly staying busy, because that pushes this messenger down, right? But once you start to just do nothing, so you don't have to do anything specifically for it to surface, it just does. And really important here is how to decode without ruminating. Like, this is not a cognitive process. People would get tricked into, and I could see that if people listen here, okay, now I'm going to do a lot of thinking to figure out what my emotions tell me and what I need. Not the way to go. And you're in your head, and usually it's too biased, it's too negative, it's too messy up there. It's down here, right, in the emotion.
There's a quote that I love, and anyone that's heard me speak will have heard me. I think I cite this quote in every single talk. I am not sorry. And it's by Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps a Score. Oh, yeah. And the quote is along the lines, I'm going to butcher this a bit, but the rational mind is basically impotent to talk the emotional mind out of its own reality. And when I read that quote, that was what unlocked this kind of level of like tapping into how I actually feel.
Yeah.
I went down for years a path of reading other books, understanding the psychological theory, like intellectually understanding why I might be depressed, but I was still cut off from my feelings.
Different game.
It is, isn't it?
Different level, yeah.
But we don't talk about that.
No.
I would say over 90%, perhaps, I could be wrong, of the support and the people we hear talking about this, it's all intellectual. It's all in the mind.
Yeah.
And it baffles me.
Yeah, but there can be some sense of safety up there too in some weird way. Like then I don't have to go down here and figure out what my emotions tell me. And it can be scary. So this is not, again, back to not demonizing anything. Like, whatever a person is doing to regulate their emotion at this point in time is the best thing they can do. Period. Always. So we can't just remove, well, we can. But if you just remove the strategy, the behavior that person, for whatever reason, has arrived at is the best thing, you can't do that. That's not the way we solve problems. You can't just, because you have to understand that the solution. It's the exact same thing as just removing a drug, like in someone addicted to actual drugs. That's a very, very clear strategy too. It's just so concrete. And everyone would know you don't help drug addicts by just removing the drug. You have to approach it as a solution that then causes other problems, but the best solution. So another way to focus is we don't want people, at least that's not our immediate goal, to help them remove their strategies. We want to get into the deeper stuff of why they do it. And then the idea would be for that to then naturally resolve. So obviously someone who trusts how to be in their emotions, which can be scary, very, very, very scary. These are powerful forces. But imagine if you if you know yourself well enough and what your emotions want, and you're confident that you know how to regulate them, so you can visit them as you did. You can visit that pain and they know how to get out of it again. Then, and you also know that they won't overwhelm you, and then they're actually all good. That's the irony. All of them are good. Also anxiety wants to protect you. All emotions, all strategies are good. They could just be destructive, but they want good. When you really get to that point of understanding that and being with it, there's less need for the maladaptive strategies, for the short-term strategies. And that's how we solve problems. We don't just remove it.